Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today, I have 15 Glitch in the Matrix stories for you. We'll start out with a bit of mysterious construction magic. Case file number 2311, written by Jawalter 2014, The Concrete Conundrum. Days ago, my mom and I were driving to go get some groceries. This was around 11 a.m., no later than 11:30. We passed by a gas station that had been flattened for months and under construction for a little while. The entire property looked like a hurricane hit it in October, as confirmed by Google Earth even now. And construction was at a standstill for months. On this day, when we passed around 11 a.m., I made the comment to my mom that it's crazy how they've been working on the station for months, but it's still just nothing. I made it a point to note to her that there was a single man there surveying, but nothing constructed as of yet. Fast forward, it's now 3:03 p.m. the same day. We're driving the same route back, past this gas station, to go to my sister's house 45 minutes away. There is now a completely assembled car wash frame standing, complete with freshly wet cement still visible. I knew that building was absolutely not there 3 hours ago, and became alarmed immediately. I began shouting at my mom that that building was not there hours ago, and she told me to shut up, that she sees it too and she knows, in a manner that wasn't angry, almost a calming yet scared response, trying to reassure me that something isn't right. Anyone who knows me knows that my mom and I do not agree on anything, ever. My curiosity got the best of me, and I used DeepSeek to estimate how long it would take an average construction crew to assemble an average gas station car wash frame. 1,000 to 1,500 square feet. My house is 1,000 square feet, and this is definitely bigger than my house. Just cement and cinder blocks. This car wash specifically was assembled with cinder blocks, cement, and I'm guessing rebar as well, maybe not. 80 hours with a 6-person crew, scaled to 25 workers, 24 hours estimate minimum. I then asked if it was even possible to assemble in 3 hours. It said yes, but we'd have to have perfect conditions, have 100% human efficiency, ignore safety, ignore any and all curing time, ignore the laws of physics, ignore building code, etc. Theoretically possible, not practically possible, and definitely not something that a business would do. Had this car wash been there in the morning, the man who was surveying the site would have been obstructed from my view when I made the comment about there being no progress on the site. But I had no problem seeing him from at least 100 feet away. The nail in the coffin. As I said earlier, this gas station has been closed for months. It was a pile of rubble when Google Earth came to town in October. In the most recent Google review, 2 months ago, for the gas station, the reviewer said that they had a good experience, since the gas station reopened after being closed for a while. That gas station was not open 2 months ago. It wasn't even open 4 months ago. But supposedly, he went there after it was closed for a while? I've lived in the same town my entire life, and this gas station has only been under construction as of recently. It's not possible that the reviewer was referring to it being closed for construction previously, because it had not been closed, other than outside normal business hours at all in recent history. I can remember being in middle school 15 years ago, and it always looked the same. Seeing into different realities, perhaps it was under construction for maybe a week prior to this, and you just saw it a few times, maybe just this once, in a different universe where it's still just being surveyed. Case file number 2312, written by Cheater42, The Porsche, the Paradox, and the Fireball Finale. Many years ago, I was attending a training seminar for a new job at the Washingtonian, a large hotel conference center fronting I-270 in Gaithersburg, Maryland, just outside DC. When I arrived, the parking lot was almost full, so I had to go park out near the freeway. As I was getting out of my rental car, I glanced at the freeway and my gaze was immediately locked on an approaching car. It was a silver Porsche 914, and I watched it intently until it disappeared in the distance. I distinctly remembered being puzzled as to why I had been so focused on that car. I liked the model well enough, but it wasn't a Ferrari or some other exotic. My attention was a bit unusual, but nothing really special, and I shrugged it off and went about my business. The experience, however, was notable enough that I became more aware of the 914 and eventually bought one. 3 years later, I was driving my new silver Porsche 914 on I-270 to DC for a meeting, and I noticed a Washingtonian sign as I approached it, and as I passed by, I distinctly saw myself standing next to that rental car in the parking lot watching me back. It felt like touching a live wire. I knew without a doubt that it was me watching me drive by. Shaken, I got off the freeway at the next exit and worked my way back to the motel. But the lot was almost empty and there was no sign of me. But I now knew the reason why that encounter 3 years previously stuck in my head. Some kind of weird causal loop connected my past and future self. Not too long after that car almost killed me. I was driving on a rural highway one night, and all of a sudden I could smell very strong gas fumes. Within seconds, the passenger compartment lit up as the engine, located just behind the two-seated cabin, caught on fire. I bailed out at 40 miles an hour and watched the fuel tank explode. The magnesium wheels and transmission case catch on fire. It was quite the show. A couple weeks later, I got a recall notice from Porsche. It seems the fuel injector lines were in danger of cracking and dumping raw gas all over a very hot engine. I used the insurance settlement to buy a new one. Bold of you. But yeah, we just had a recent story where a man was just walking or jogging in a forest or a path, and he ran into himself a decade later. He didn't know at the time until he eventually gets there, and yeah, there's some sort of causal time loop, portal, or space-time aberration going around. It's spreading like the flu, but much less unpleasant. Case file number 2313, written by Time Place 5719. Wrong address, right friend. On my daughter's birthday, I had to run an errand to pick up a balloon inflator that a friend had kindly offered us. My wife and I talked about it in the morning, but we didn't agree on a time, and she never gave me the friend's address, so I completely forgot about it. Later that day, I wanted to get some pots for planting to have my plants ready for the party. I searched Facebook Marketplace and found someone giving away 10 nice pots. We agreed on a price, and I went to pick them up. I had the seller's address on my phone and entered the house number into my car's navigation. For some reason, I was convinced the house number was 22. I knocked on the door, and to my surprise, my friend opened it. She looked confused since we hadn't arranged a time for me to pick up the balloon inflator, and I was equally confused as to why she was answering the door. She was in the middle of a video call and told me to wait a minute. Still puzzled, I quickly asked, "Are you living with Lucy?" Lucy being the person selling the pots. She frowned and said, "Lucy? No. Wait a minute." I went back to my car to check my phone and realized the actual address was number 26, not 22. My friend then came out with the balloon inflator and said, "I didn't know you were coming to pick this up. Hope it's useful. Say hi to your wife and enjoy the party." I asked again, "Do you know Lucy?" She laughed and said, "Oh, Lucy is my neighbor." At that point, I had to explain, "Look, I actually came to pick up some plant pots, not the inflator. I wasn't planning on getting it today, and I didn't even know your address." She looked confused, I was confused. Then I knocked on Lucy's door, explained everything, and honestly, nobody really understood what had just happened. The city is huge, with at least 100,000 houses. Google Maps had no idea about the party, the pots, or the balloons, and to be honest, I am still confused. Well, at least it was a glitch that worked out. Case file number 2314, written by Humbly Human 888. The Spot. When I was around 15 to 16 years old, my friends and I had this place that we nicknamed The Spot. It was a huge sand dune on the inlet that overlooked the skyline of our beach town and ocean. It had an incredible view. The closest beach access parking was over an hour's walk away, and it's illegal to be on the sand dunes due to conservation movements in the state. We were dumb teenagers and have since learned from our actions. We knew to respect the land enough to not litter or kick sand or anything, just sit and appreciate. One night, my best friend and I were making our trek to the spot. At one point in the walk, I looked over to my right to the inland side and took notice of 3 condos standing solo in the landscape. No other developments, quite a rare sight to see in Florida, especially our touristy town. I looked the other way to the ocean side and saw a heron wading in the water on one leg, an airplane gliding in the distance behind him. I took a deep breath of the salty air and took notice of how beautiful it is to live here. Well, a few minutes go by, 5, maybe 10 maximum, and I notice we are approaching 3 condos again. I look over to the water and see a heron on one leg and a plane passing behind. Okay, weird. Few more minutes pass by, and then again. Same 3 condos, same heron, same plane. I thought I was going crazy until my best friend broke the silence and said, "Dude, I swear we've passed by that bird 3 times now." We are freaking out a bit. She jokes we are in a time loop. It becomes less funny as we see it again, 2 more times. We don't know what to make of it, so we just keep walking. Some more minutes go by, and we stop. We turn around to look back, and we see the lights of 3 condos, way off in the distance, like 2 miles at least. We just laughed at ourselves, but still unsettled. We made it to the spot, and we ended the night on a good note at least. Now get this, fast forward about 5 or so years later, and I experienced another glitch. A new restaurant had opened up. It was located right behind the restaurant I was working at the time. We shared a little outside backyard, and we take breaks together. I also ate there with my neighbors. It's located on a cute little downtown street called Canal Street, where there's a bunch of shops and restaurants. That morning was a gloomy morning. The street was deserted. I'm driving down the street with my boyfriend, and I get to the end of the street, look to my left, and see the restaurant. I got very confused because it's supposed to be at the front of the street and to the right of me. So I asked my boyfriend why they have 2 locations on the same street. He doesn't understand what I'm talking about, acts as if it's always been there. I was stopped in the street looking at it confused for like at least 30 seconds. I loop through and go back to the front of the street and find the location I remember, exactly where it should be. I pointed out to my boyfriend, and he has no idea what I'm talking about, just completely forgot the conversation we just had in front of the other location. So I drive to the end of the street to show him, and it's gone. Totally vanished, replaced by the same empty buildings for lease that I knew to always be there. I drove around the street for a couple more times to confirm what I saw, but everything was back to normal. The kicker? That restaurant is named The Spot. Literally. Look up The Spot in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, and you'll find it. I just think it's so crazy that 2 very concerning slips of reality that I ever experienced both involve places called The Spot. It is crazy, and it's almost like your soul was disconnected from your body and interfacing with different versions of yourself across the multiverse, although you also experienced the time loop with your friend. Some crazy wacky stuff going on. Case file number 2315, written by Admirable Flow, the bus passenger who hit respawn. So a while ago, I was riding on a city bus. I was sitting in the middle, facing the back side. A girl with headphones in her 20s appears from behind me and places herself in the standing area just in front of me. She doesn't sit anywhere, which is weird because the bus was almost empty, and she was loaded with shopping bags and a backpack. She spent around 15 minutes while talking constantly on her phone. Then I clearly saw her heading to the back door, getting off the bus and walking away. I think to myself, finally some quiet. So another 10 minutes, and a couple of bus stops pass by, and suddenly, bam, like a déjà vu, the same girl with the bags and the headphones appears from behind me again, and takes the same spot she was standing the previous 15 minutes, while still talking on the phone, and continues the ride. It was just like when you die in a video game and it respawns you back to the last checkpoint. Anyway, my stop came shortly after that, so I didn't have the time to reflect on the situation more thoroughly. No idea how or why she made that stunt, or the universe did. Case file number 2316, written by Tart Art, When the World Wept With Me. My father passed when I was 5. The day he died was when I got some of my first memories. That was when I truly started to think. It was 4 a.m. when I awoke to my mother screaming, and as I walked out of my room, I saw my father on the couch gasping for air. He was having a heart attack. I did not realize at the time how serious this was, for I simply sat next to him as he was slowly dying. I wanted to be near him in order to comfort him in any way. When the ambulance came to take him to the hospital, I watched him get lifted out on the stretcher, and that was the last time I saw him. Once my mother and I drove to the hospital, I sat in the waiting room for a good 20 minutes with my grandfather, expressing how, after all this was over, my mother, father, and I would all go to Disney. I truly thought in those blissfully unaware 20 minutes that my father would come out unharmed. However, right when I saw my mother and grandmother walk out of the ER doors, I knew he was gone. He died on the way to the hospital. He had no chance. I became acutely aware of how cruel the world was at such an early age, that it's no wonder I have suffered from mental issues my whole life. As we all packed into my grandparents' car to stay at their condo for a little, it started to rain heavily, just as the sun was breaking through the sky. I remember looking out the window and watching the world cry for my father. It was such a beautiful moment to see us drive over the bridge and get to view the ocean light up with the rays of the sun and the cool raindrops falling upon the car. At that moment, I truly believe my dad went to a better place, wherever that may be. I've told this to many people, and they all think I hallucinated it as a way to cope with my trauma, but I know it was real. Every now and again you get stories that just make you tear up a bit when you read it. I'm sorry for your loss. Case file number 2317, written by Burnt Sierra, The House Full of Red Letters. When I was about 15, I had a friend whose grandparents lived on a farm about 30 minutes out of town. On the edge of the property was a house her grandmother grew up in, which was not in the best of shape and had been abandoned. My friend had invited a few of us out to their cabin for a sleepover, and in the early evening, we decided to go explore the house as my friend said she had never been inside. The house was locked, and most of the windows were boarded up except one, which we used to get in. Inside the house, we found a somewhat unsettling scene. The house looked like the family had just left all their belongings behind and abandoned the house. A book on the couch, which was flipped over to hold its spot, dishes in the sink, and even a pot on the stove, which had a layer of filth inside, like whatever it had contained had degraded to mush and dried up. The staircase was very rickety and leaning to the left, so we went up one at a time and I went first. The bedroom upstairs were similarly abandoned. The wardrobe in one of the bedrooms was open and a moth-eaten dress lay out on the bed. I even found a necklace with a delicate cross pendant on it, on the floor by the bed, which I took with me. We were all a little spooked, but too curious to leave, until we found the doll. In one of the children's bedrooms right under the window was a small desk, with nothing on it but a doll lying on its back in the middle. It was about the size of my hand, with short blonde hair and wide blue eyes. I noticed what looked like a little flap on its chest as it was slightly open, so I opened it all the way, which covered its face. In bright red letters, "Get out." I did not hesitate to obey, and shouted to my friends that we needed to leave. I already felt fairly uncomfortable, but when I read the doll's message, I felt like I was being watched. We all hurried down the stairs one by one and crawled out of the window. Once we had ran past the tree line, which surrounded the old house, we stopped, and I explained what I saw, and one of my friends said she had seen the message too when I lifted the flap. We didn't tell my friend's grandmother what we did, but apparently, she told my friend later that they just transitioned out of living at that house and left a lot of stuff behind and then boarded it up when they had built their new house. I still have the necklace, but I have never worn it as it just reminds me of what happened. Case file number 2318, written by TDW12. Rock and Roll and the Mystery Man. I was jamming with a bunch of friends in a friend's basement. It's basically one large room, and at the end, there's a door leading to the stairs, and perpendicular to that, there was a bathroom on the right wall. and the little office his dad used on the left wall. So we were all playing our instruments. I was set up so that I was basically the only one facing the stairs in the other two rooms, and I saw what looked like a tall, elderly man come out of the bathroom on the right, walk across to the room on the left while looking at me. I didn't really register what I saw until like a minute later, when we were done playing a song, and I looked back up to the stairway. I told my friends what I saw, and they just said it was probably just friend X using the bathroom. He had gone there a few times before, but during that song we were playing, absolutely all of us were in the room, and there was no one else in the house, because my friend's parents were off on vacation. He had also told me about weird stuff happening in this house before, like unexplained noises. I'm pretty skeptical and not sure I believe in ghosts, but remembering that kinda wigs me out, and I still don't have a rational explanation for it, because no one else was there. Case file number 2319, written by Legend 5V. The Walking spoiler alert. I know things. This has happened many times, countless. I warn people of something coming out of nothing. Sometimes it's small, like, today is a bad day to go to the park, let's not go. What happened that day? It hails hard. I have a bad feeling about this gas station. Let's go to the next one. It's out of gas. Actual story. I begged my mom this one time, knowing has been happening all my life, to pick me up from school instead of making me take the bus. And she caved in and said she'd get off work early that day. My friends on the bus then told me that its engine had died and they were stuck for hours. Sometimes the info just comes to me. I learned about a topic, let's say how black holes are made. Next day, we had a huge discussion in class about it, and I sounded like a genius. I learned how to solder. I need to fix my computer the next day. Yes, it's sometimes that absurd. It's more cool than creepy, almost like a superpower. But I wouldn't call it normal, knowing it happens about once a week. This is very cool, and yes, it is like a superpower. Your subconscious pulling on the threads of information from the universe. Case file number 2320, written by Arctic Puppets. When the walls whisper and the dog knows. There is an attic above my parents' washer and dryer. It's a small closet-like place down the hall that the bedrooms are attached to. Well, one year, randomly, we could hear crawling around up there like an animal or something. Sometimes you would hear scratching. Then the white ceiling, which was white, was stained for a bit, like an off-brown color, and the closet stunk so bad we hardly ever wanted to open it. We called an exterminator as we suspected raccoons or something found its way in there somehow. By the time the exterminator came a day later, the stain was gone, along with the smell. He crawled up there, and there were zero signs of animals and no urine or feces around anywhere. It never happened again after that week. My parents' house isn't that old, maybe 25 years or so, but we always suspected it had to be haunted in a sense. A few times my dad woke up with big scratches on his back. In the middle of the night you would hear walking down the halls, but never see anyone. Sometimes when you were in our basement, you'd hear these same footsteps, and run upstairs to see if one of our parents came home, and no one would be there. Just lots of strange things like that. We had a dog that never barked, ever. One day, my mom was in the living room chair, and she said she felt like someone was behind her. Our dog sprung up off the couch and began barking and snarling his teeth down the hall. He stared into the back bedroom, which was my sister's at the time, and continued for a while until my mom was able to snap him out of it. It was strange. My sister and my room shared a wall, and at night she would often talk in her sleep, and laugh in a really creepy laugh. It scared the hell out of me. To this day, my mom and I swear it was some kind of spirit, causing the smell and stain, along with being responsible for the noises in the attic. My dad and brother wouldn't buy it, but just typing this all creeps me out still. Case file number 2321, written by 614 Elizabeth. A shadow in the night, a mystery in the morning. I crashed with some friends in their living room couch for a few months. They were big partiers, and I was used to them and their friends coming and going at all hours of the day and night. This only lasted a few months before we moved into a bigger place together, so I didn't mind. One night, around 11:40 p.m., I heard a weird shuffling noise coming from outside the front door. Definitely someone there. A few quiet minutes passed, and no one came in. I was worried that it was one of my roommates, coming home drunk, and thought maybe they needed help. So I got up and went to peek out of the small window by the door. Sure enough, one of my roommates was standing outside, maybe 4 feet away from the door. She was facing the other way, looking out into the distance. She didn't move, but I didn't notice anything concerning, and figured that maybe she was outside watching her ride roll away, smoking a cigarette, something like that. I didn't open the door, and she never noticed me, and I just went back to the couch. I fell asleep not long after that, and I don't remember her coming in that night. But the next morning when I woke up, she was there. I told her I heard her come home that night before, and asked her what she was doing outside. She seemed confused, and told me she had been at the bars till closing time, and didn't get home until almost 3 a.m. I insisted that I had seen her there for hours before then, that I had gotten up to check on her and remembered the time and everything. She said that wasn't possible, and her and our other roommates told me that I was probably just dreaming. I gave up on trying to get them to believe me, but I hadn't even fallen asleep yet when everything happened, and I know what I saw. Yeah, this is probably soul projection. She projected her essence, a part of it, back home, where she probably wanted to be, but her physical body wasn't there. Case file number 2322, written by Macaroon number 3665. Rosaries Rex and a Vanishing Interstate. About 2 years ago, me and 2 of my friends, Mary and Laura, were going on a trip for Mary's 21st birthday. Mary always had the idea that she wouldn't live to make it to 21, and is extremely Catholic. We left for a trip mid-afternoon on a Friday, so the roads were busy. At every single stop we made, Mary prayed with her rosary in her hands, and sprinkled holy water on all of us and around the car. Mary was already tense driving, as the roads were busy, and could hardly ever switch lanes due to all the cars zooming by. We are cut off by a car going at least 85 miles per hour. Moments before this, I and Laura are looking behind us to make sure Mary can switch lanes and tell her it's no good, there's too many cars coming. Mary loses control of the car and we spin repeatedly until we crash into the guardrail. When we get out of the car, there's no cars on the interstate. This is 5 p.m. on a Friday. We had just seen the cars 2 minutes beforehand. To this day, none of us know what happened, but we all had a very uneasy feeling that something just wasn't right. While I'm grateful we weren't hit while riding in Mary's Mini Cooper, my friends and I to this day cannot explain what happened. Mary was convinced we died and went to an alternate timeline, as she was certain she was going to die before she turned 21. I honestly don't know what happened. I think Mary was correct, although die in the sense of that universe and only that universe. You're just in a different one, no sweat. Case file number 2323, written by Trust Nobody. Was that teleportation or just Arizona? Well, I wouldn't have thought much of it myself if my brother didn't say what he did. What he said would have been random otherwise. He said, "Did they just teleport?" Which sounds ridiculous, right? But I thought the exact same thing. I think we're in Arizona visiting some dam, walking up its path. Basically, this older woman and younger man appeared seemingly out of nowhere. You didn't necessarily see it, but you felt it. This happened in 2018. I was 15, my brother would have been 18. I have problems socializing, and that involves communicating with direct family. So my brother and I have never spoken about this, but I would think he'd remember it. It has come to the point where you doubt that that was what you think happened. But again, my brother said, "Did they just teleport?" If he didn't say that, I may have just let myself forget about it. This is how I most accurately remember it. And the old woman, young man, even said a few things, I think to my family. Not sure what, just that I'm pretty sure they interacted with us. And they never disappeared, just that they seemingly came out of nowhere. Yeah, space-time portals are everywhere, and they may not even have noticed they crossed into one. Maybe if they had the view of the dam in sight, but given their reaction, none at all, they probably didn't even realize. Case file number 2324, written by Sirachiles. The Flash, the Ship, and the forgotten exit. I was like 7 to 10 years old. My mom was getting off the interstate at an exit we took all the time. The one we normally took to go to a store. Well, when we were getting off here on this exit, I was sitting in the back seat. And I looked out to the left side of the car, and my cousin was with me. And he too was looking out, and we saw a huge black spaceship. At least an object that looked like one. Triangular in shape, but not exactly a triangle. And went nose first into the ground behind the tree line. It would have crashed in the position it was in. It was not landing. It looked like a ship. My cousin saw it, I saw it. Then there was a green flash. Not big enough to capture the attention of everyone around us, but we immediately asked my mom if she saw that too, to the left, and she was like, nah, what the hell? Scared the crap out of us for the rest of the day. For context too, this was like 20-ish years ago. I'm not entirely sure how old I was. All I know is I never wanted to go to that side of the town again. Funny enough though, I have. Nothing is there besides a neighborhood and a store. But I swear to this day I know what I saw. I really do believe aliens are here, examining us. And maybe they have technical problems all the time too. I mean, even if technology is advanced, well, that would just mean there's more things that can go wrong. So they may be incredibly smart and advanced, but maybe issues still happen. Although in this case, did you really see a crash? Was it just a horizon blocking it, and it still just went about its way without issue? Probably the latter, but who knows? Case file number 2325, written by Anonymous. 3 times Lisa. So I was sleeping, and I had a dream that someone in my family passed away. I didn't really think much of it. A few days later, on a Wednesday morning, the dream continued. It honestly didn't feel like a dream. It felt like I got a glimpse of the future. I just remember laying on my bed, feeling panicked, breathless, and scared, because it felt so real. I remember hearing one of my aunt's names 3 times in this dream. I brushed it off and went to a thrift shop. While at the thrift shop, I just got this urge to tell her about my dream. I told her about how it felt so real, and how I didn't really see a face in my dream. It was more of a feeling, but I remember seeing a lot of faceless people. They were mourning inside a place that looked like a house. I told her about how I wished the dream wouldn't come true, and how I wanted to call my aunt and check up on her. On Thursday, a family member texted me saying that my sister passed away in her sleep. She was in her early 30s with no health conditions we knew about. I guess it was just a natural death. She had a daughter she named after my aunt, whose name I heard in my dream. My grandma was on the phone with my niece, and she said the same aunt's name 3 times. I remember this clearly. She said, "Why is everyone saying Lisa, Lisa, Lisa? What's wrong with her? Did she faint because of the shock?" I remember sitting in my room confused while trying to convince myself that it was all a nightmare. I still think about this from time to time. It's so weird, and the only one who believes me is my younger sister, because I told her about it the day before. No matter how much I think about it, it's something that just can't be explained. I don't know if it was just my wild imagination or a dream that ended up coming true. I usually can't remember my dreams, but this dream is one I'll never forget. It gives me the chills and creeps me out every time I think about it. Now time for the dad jokes of the day. My son said to me, "Dad, today I watched someone do 50 push-ups. Do you think you could do that?" I said, "Of course, son. I don't want to brag, but I could probably watch someone do 100 push-ups." Yeah, if you observe, you don't get any benefits, but it still counts, right? If someone gave you $1,000 because you are ugly, would you take the money? Absolutely. I'm ugly, not stupid. If they find me ugly but give me $1,000, I mean, cool? Would it kill the makers of avocados to just put a different toy inside? I have like 50 wooden balls already. Hey, those toys can make more avocados, so pretty neat. My wife sat me down and said, "If I ever die, I don't want you to live out your days lonely." I tried to push it aside. "Oh no, honey, don't worry, that won't happen." She persisted. "Look, I mean it. I want you to move on, to find someone else and be happy. Maybe even remarry. Promise me." So I relented. Okay, I understand, I promise. Oh, but please don't let her wear my clothes. So I said, oh, don't worry, she's not your size. He's already got options. What do you call an obese clairvoyant? A fortune teller. That one's really good. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.